Hello everyone. So now we will be evaluating with users. So in order to do that, first I will tell you about the basics of usability evaluation. There are many methods within this particular category, which is usability in evaluation. So I will define usability testing and explain how it measures effectiveness, efficiency and satisfaction. Then we will distinguish between formative and summative and comparative and remote usability testing and how do we choose the right time. We will plan and run a usability test wherein we will see how to set the objectives, tasks, representative users and quantitative and satisfaction measures. So what is usability testing? So in this particular method, I test a product. The product can be a sketch, a prototype or a finished build. So I do usability testing throughout the design journey. In the very beginning, it is a sketch which can be tested, and towards the end of it, it can be a finished build which is going for testing. And I do this testing in front of representative users and ask them to carry out realistic tasks while researchers observe them. So how it works, I will be recruiting representative users, set realistic tasks to complete and observe and measure the behavior. What I am trying to measure, so there is a ISO standard, the 9241, and it says that I have to measure effectiveness, which means can users complete the task, efficiency, how quickly and with what effort, and satisfaction, how did the experience feel like. So when I am saying effectiveness, can users complete their goal, what I am trying to measure is task completion rate and the error count. When I am trying to measure efficiency, at what cost of time and effort, I am trying to measure things like time taken to finish a task, the number of clicks taken to achieve that, or the amount of effort taken to achieve that. When I am trying to measure satisfaction, how positive is the experience, I can use different tools like the SUS score or self-report rating scales which can be designed, which helps me understand this. So all of them fall under this broad category called usability. So it always is evaluated within a specified context of use, and I will have, when I say specified use, it implies there will be a specified set of users for a specified set of tasks with certain kind of equipment and in a certain environment. All of them is supposed to be defined. So now let's look at the context of use, the four factors which have an impact. So users. So when I am trying to look at the users, trying to define the users for usability evaluation, I am trying to see who they are, what are their skills, experiences, their age, physical ability, domain knowledge and motivation. When I look at the task, I am trying to see what they are trying to do, what is their goal, how frequently they want to do it, what is the complexity level, how critical the outcome is. When I talk about equipment, it is about the hardware, the software which will be used, the device or the screen size, the browser, network and assistive tech. Environment. Physical and the social setting, which will include all these aspects which we discussed in our context of use lecture related to lighting, noise, mobility, privacy, time pressure. All these form the environment part of it. So now let's look at the guidelines, the ISO 9241 guidelines, which guides this whole usability evaluation process. So this particular guidelines is called as the ergonomics of human system interaction, and this particular guideline has several guidelines within them. So let's say if I look at the 100 series, it is about software ergonomics. So the part 100, it is introduction to standards related to software ergonomics. Part 110, it is about dialogue principles, how they are supposed to be designed. Part 112 is about principles for the presentation of information. Guidance on visual presentation of information is part 125. So depending on what your purpose is, you can look at the appropriate ISO standards for that. So the 100 series deals with software ergonomics. The 200 series deals with human system interaction processes. So human-centered design for interactive systems are part of it. Always remember that these guidelines are all evolving guidelines, and as our devices evolve, as our human system interaction modalities evolve, these keep on evolving, and further chapters might be added to each of these series. So you have to constantly keep updating your knowledge onto them. The 300 series deals with displays and display related hardware. So say for example, the part 300, it is introduction to electronic visual display requirements. Part 302 is about terminology for electronic visual displays. Part 309 TR is about organic light emitting diode, so OLED displays. The part 310 is about visibility, aesthetics and ergonomics of pixel defects. The 400 series deals with physical input devices and the ergonomic principles which goes into it. So principles and requirements for physical input devices, so maybe a keyboard or a mouse, anything which is used for giving input and it is physical in nature, and design criteria for physical input devices. The 500 series deals with workplace ergonomics. The 600 series is about environment ergonomics. 700 series is about application domain control rooms. And the 900 series is about tactile and haptic interactions. So let's look at the types of usability testing. There are 4 kinds of usability testing that you can do, and they are suited for different kinds of design stages that you are in right now and different kinds of research questions that you have. So I can do formative, summative, comparative or remote. So when I am trying to do formative, it is meant for early stages of the design. So I can run them on sketches as well, I can run them on prototypes, on mockups. So it explores user needs, preferences and expectations, and it generates feedback that guides the further design decisions. Summative. So they run later on in the design process when you have a more developed and near final product. So it evaluates the usability and satisfaction, measuring performance against predefined criteria or benchmarks. Then I have comparative. It compares the usability and experience of 2 or more products or options. So I have A and B, 2 options, and I can compare them. So it exposes the strengths and weaknesses of each to inform design choices. I can also do remote, wherein users and testers are located in different locations, and it is the evaluation is technology mediated. The benefit is you can reach to a much wider and more diverse user base and cuts the time and cost of testing. So when is usability testing supposed to be used? So as I told you, you can use it in any design phase. So when you are in the early design phase, you can use formative tests which help you in checking your rough prototypes, catch the problems early on, and the earlier in the design process, if you are able to catch them, then it is cheaper to make the changes as compared to when the product is already ready. Before release, to benchmark against other existing products. So summative tests confirm the product meets its usability criteria and is ready to ship. When you have 2 or more options to choose, so you do this comparative test and you have evidence that on feature X, A performs better than B by 30%. So whenever opinion replaces evidence, so let's say at any point of time the team is assuming how users will behave in a candidate. So rather than having this gut feeling that I think or we think that it might work, it is always a good idea that actually base it on evidence, where you do a actual usability evaluation rather than just believe on your gut feelings. So there are many different usability evaluation methods. However, there is a generic process which is same for most of the user research methods that you need to follow. So first you will define, you will set the objectives of the test and the specific tasks that it needs to cover. So in user research, you are not specifically designing your research on certain tasks, but in usability evaluation, you are always having certain tasks in mind, and against those tasks, you are evaluating the usability. Because if you remember, it was about effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. So you always have to have a task. You recruit participants who genuinely represent the product's target user, follow all the principles that we have discussed till now related to, let's say, context of use, or the fact that some people have situational impairment or some people have permanent impairment. So follow all those principles to recruit your participants. Then you prepare, write realistic task scenarios that feel natural, not like step-by-step instructions. Then you will run it. So observe users, encourage think aloud, and record performances and behavior, of course with permission. Then you will analyze the data. So depending on the type of data, we will engage into qualitative analysis or quantitative analysis. Whenever you are measuring the number of errors, the time required to complete a certain task, then it is all quantitative data. Usability testing in action. So let's look at this example which we had started in our previous lecture, where we actually designed this smartwatch along with my users. So here I am going to do usability testing. So my objective is determine which of the candidate strapping mechanisms is the most user friendly. So which means I am trying to compare between two or more different options and see which one is the best for the users. So it is a quantitative measure. What quantitative measure I am going to use? I will try to see what is the time taken to fasten the strap, whether the watch is dropping during strapping, and if it is, how many times. Then I will try to do a satisfaction measure. So users will rate on a scale of 1 to 5 the overall satisfaction with the strap, the ease of strapping, and how much they liked it. So that was about a generic usability evaluation process. So always remember, usability is a quality attribute that assesses how easy user interfaces are to use. Now from our next lecture onwards, the next 3 lectures of this particular week are going to about certain usability evaluation methods. The key takeaways from this particular lecture is test with real users. That's the whole idea of usability evaluation. There are 4 types. Depending on your design phase or depending on your intent, you select the type: formative, summative, comparative, or remote testing. A clear process has to be there. So define the objective, the task that needs to be done, recruit the right kind of participants who are representative enough, run the sessions, measure and report the findings. Measure both. Combine quantitative performance metrics with self-reported satisfaction ratings for a complete picture. Because in any usability evaluation, my aim is to measure effectiveness, efficiency, and satisfaction. Here are some of the key references that you can go through. I would always suggest go through this ISO standards and get a feel of what are the main concerns when somebody is trying to do a usability evaluation. So thank you so much. We will pick up the next evaluation method, which is heuristic evaluation, in the next lecture. See you then.